today. Welcome back to our iLearnNYC Brightspace Content Development Series. Today is session 2 out of a few sessions you will be doing with iLearn to learn how to use the tools to build your course. In today's session, you will be focusing on building content. So if you were with us yesterday, we are the same presenters as you had yesterday. I am Jeannie Chun on the right of your screen. I am a full-time remote teacher. You'll also hear from Jennifer Koo later in the presentation. We're both full-time remote teachers with iLearn. We've been using the iLearn platform for the entire school year. We both teach high school, and we will be showing you some examples from our courses today on how to build and use content. You'll also notice that we have some people from iLearn here on the panel, and they may be helping to address some of your questions during the session. I wanted to go over again community agreements for the webinar. So if you were with us yesterday, these should look familiar. Remember, there are a few places in Zoom where you can communicate with us. We ask that you use the Zoom question and answer box only for questions related to this particular session and the topic being presented. If there are unrelated questions, one of the panelists may dismiss your question in the Q&A box. It doesn't mean that we're ignoring your question or don't want to answer it. It just means that we want to stick with the topic at hand, and we will refer you to the answers to those questions in our resources and during office hours, which we'll talk more about at the end of this session. There's also a Zoom chat function that I see many of you found already. While I'm talking, I'm not going to be monitoring the chat, and know that when you send a message through Zoom chat that it goes just to the panelists. And during the session, the panelists will help to address your concerns and questions in the chat. We'll also be able to help you out during that quiet tinker time. There were already a couple questions about recordings. These sessions are recorded. They will be provided to you sometime this week by someone from iLearn. Okay, so yesterday we spent our session looking at announcements and activity feed from the iLearn homepage. Today we are going to be working in another section on the iLearn page, and we are focusing on building content. Our objectives for today are for you to build and create content for your students, either from scratch or from resources you may already have in Google Drive or OneDrive. You'll be able to plan ahead and make content visible when you are ready to share it with students. By the end of today's session, you will have created a unit and lesson that you can use to welcome students back to school. So the big tool, the main tool that we're working on today is this content tool. And we're going to show you how content is divided into units, lessons, and folders. We are going to stick with this theme of welcome back to school, and the goal is to use this content tool to create a welcome back unit that you can use during the first few days of school. At this point, we'll get signed into iLearnNYC.net. So I'm going to use that split window view that I showed you yesterday. And so you can watch me one more time, and then I'll give you a couple moments to do that on your own screens. So I'm going to make this window smaller and move it to the left side of my screen. And from Chrome, I'll go to the top right corner, the 3 dots, to open a new window. I'll drag that second window to the right of my screen. I'm going to use this second window to go to iLearnNYC so that I can log into my course. Okay, and then as a reminder, from iLearn, you're going to scroll to the bottom of the page to click sign in. You may already be signed in from yesterday, but if you need to sign in again, you're going to add just your Outlook username, not your whole email. Insert the password, and that'll get you logged in. Okay, so when you log in, it'll bring you to your teacher landing page. I'm going to pause for a few moments so that everyone can get logged in, And if you want to use that split window view that I have, what you can do on your machine is to move your Zoom window to the left side. So you can make it smaller, move it to the left side of your screen, and then use that right side of the screen to have that other window that has iLearn in it. Okay, so I'll give us a few moments to get logged in, and then let's pause here when you get to the teacher landing page. At this point, hopefully you're logged in. I'm going to continue. So from the teacher landing page, I will review how to access your sandbox. So as we did yesterday, we're going to go to the top of the screen, and you can follow along with me for now. There's that waffle icon called the course selector. When I click the waffle course selector, I'll see all the courses that I have. And hopefully you've already pinned your course in that session 0 from yesterday. You'll notice here that my pinned courses have this darkened pin. And so if you find your course and it's light, you can just click it, it'll pin it for you. That way it's just easier to see every time you want to access it. So you are going to click the one with your name on it. Same as yesterday, your sandbox will have your name on it. Mine, for example, is J-Chun4 Sandbox. Okay, so as a reminder, Jen and I in this session will be working from our shared sandbox, which is called Cohort 204. So I'm going to click that one, but you are going to click the one with your name on it. So let's go ahead and open our sandbox, which again is this, it's a course that we're playing in, right, as we are practicing the tools. Okay, so in your course, you'll notice everything you created from yesterday, right? So Jen and I did these announcements yesterday. At the bottom, you can see the activity feed posts we worked on yesterday. Okay, that was from the home page. So for today, I mentioned we're going to be working in a different section in the iLearn course. So we are going to be working in content. So at the top of your page, you'll see this nav bar. This should sound familiar from what you learned in session 0 yesterday. And we want to click on this icon that says content. If for some reason you don't see it there, it may be in the second row in your nav bar. So you'll notice there's this little down arrow over here. And if I click that, it'll expand that section. And that way I can see all the icons in my nav bar. So for today, I'm going to click content. For now, you can turn your attention to my screen, and then I'll give us some time to play in our courses in a little bit. So this is the content tool. And I'll mention for starters that we are working in this teacher view now, and I'm going to show you how you as the teacher can control things as you build content. So what is content? It's basically all the stuff in your course, right? What are you teaching students? What do you want them to learn, etc. It's this roadmap for planning how to build out your course for students. And so on the left side of my screen on the slide, I have some things I'd like you to bear in mind as you consider how you are building content, right? So we asked you to bring in today a curriculum map or a scope and sequence, and maybe even a unit and lesson so that you can work on that during our session today. So one of the things I want you to bear in mind is consider what you want students to learn. What are those essential questions or themes or focus questions or topics that you want students to complete in your course, right? Second thing, what do you want students to see, right? So we as the teacher in this iLearn content tool, we can control what we want students to learn, but also how they see it, right? Like what you want them to see, what images, what files, etc. Another thing is to consider how you are going to present this content. What is the flow and order? And as teachers, I think we spend a lot of time thinking and maybe even changing our minds about the order of things, right? What topic do we want to do first, next, etc., right? So this content tool allows you to build and control the order, and then you can decide when you want students to see that. So in my view on this right side of my screen, I'm showing our shared sandbox, and Jen and I have built into it. So we have a couple of units and lessons here that I'll show you as examples, but know that when you are in your sandbox, it's gonna be empty, right? So you are starting from a clean slate. We're gonna show you how to build into it, and just know that being organized from the very beginning will make it easier for you and your students. You'll notice here in my right example on the right screen that I have some units here, and we've decided to number them, right? So that's one way Jen and I decided that we wanted to stay organized in terms of what unit comes first, next, etc. And we're going to show you how to do that. Okay, I'm going to talk next about what the content hierarchy is and how content is organized in iLearn. So if you turn your attention to the left side of my screen on my slides, you can see here there are 3 levels in content. The first one is unit, and you'll notice there's a color there that's darker. The second indented tab is lesson, and then there's a 3rd level called folder, right? Notice here that they have the same color, right, because they live inside each other. So you can organize your content in this way, right? What are these 3 units, levels? The first one is called unit, the first level landing page, right? So the unit houses all your materials for one chunk of your course. How you chunk your course is going to be up to you. So as a teacher, you can call it a unit or a week, chapters, topics. That's really up to you to decide how you want to call it. You can name it whatever you want, but this level is not optional, meaning when you build content, you need to have at least a unit page. The next thing is lessons, right? Lessons live inside the unit. Lessons are the next level, and creating this level is optional. You can go right into your content from the unit, or you can further divide your units into lessons. Then we have a 3rd layer called folders, and these are optional as well. So whether you decide to use just a unit or unit and lessons or all 3 levels is up to you. You can have content within any of these 3 levels, but you can decide how to use these levels based on how you're going or what you're going to teach and how you want students to see it. And that'll be more clear once you start building into the course. So now let's take a look. I'm going to show you some examples from this elementary sandbox that I have here. I'm going to maximize my right screen so that you can see it. And first thing I'm going to do is show you those 3 levels that I just talked about. Okay. So in this content tool, you'll notice we have a couple of units here. And I'm going to show you what I have in this first unit called poetry. Notice here that when I hover over this first tab, this unit tab, there's a little arrow. It means that there's stuff in it. When I click that, it's going to expand, and it shows you the next level here. Okay. There's another arrow here, so I'm going to click that to expand. So here we have those 3 levels, right? In this example, Unit 1 poetry is our unit landing page. And when I click that, it shows you we have an essential question and an image, right? This is the first thing that I want students to see. It's like a welcome overview to what the unit is going to be. Then I have a lesson in this unit, right? So this one is about haiku. There's an image here. And then we have this folder level, right? Which has a little more detail now, right? So there's some text, and then there's a video embedded in here. And we're going to show you how to do all this. Notice here I have some other examples too, right? So if I'm kind of working here, I might want to just collapse everything so I can see it neater, right? And then it just goes back to that collapsed view. And I want to remind us again, we are in the teacher view now. I'm going to show you next what the student view looks like and compare the 2. So if you turn your attention back to the left side of my screen, you have the teacher view, which I just showed you, right? The unit lesson folder. And then on the right side of my slide, I have the student view. So the student view is linear, right? However you decide as the teacher to order things is how the students are going to see it. So in this creation mode for teachers, you can move things around. We'll show you how to do that. You can reorder things, but the student view passes from one thing to the next to the next. So for example, you can see here the way I've ordered it, the students will see Unit 1 first, then 2, then 3, right? One of the recommendations that Jen and I will make when you're building content is to number your items. And of course, you can change the order and renumber things, but we find that this is a good organizational tool so we know how we're going to show students the content. Okay, you'll also notice in the student view, there's it says completed on the right side. And so in the student experience, they can see what items of your content they've completed. I'm going to show you an expanded view of this student view live. So I'm going to go back to my sandbox and I'll show you view as student. So I'll go to my profile at the top, click view as student. And then now the page looks a little bit different, right? So you'll notice has the announcements from yesterday, the activity feed, right? This is what we published for students to see yesterday. For now, I want you to see the student view for content. So I'm going to use this same icon from the nav bar. Just note that there are various ways for you as the teacher to have students access content. So tomorrow when you learn about creating assignments, you'll learn how to link assignments to content and then how to even add assignments and content into announcements, for example. Okay, so more details on that later. So you may have students clicking in other places, but for now, I'm going to use this content icon from the nav bar. So I'll click that. Notice now we are in student view, right? So you don't have those tabs on the left side that we had in teacher view. In the student view, you can see at the very top, it highlights where you want students to start or where the student should start, right? So I'm at the very beginning. This might be, let's say, the first time the student has accessed this content. So there's a get started button that they could click. It's going to launch the contents. There's also this button here to launch units. So potentially, let's say you're in the middle of the year and a student wants to launch a previous unit from the beginning, they could use that button. Okay, but mainly they're going to go here. I'm going to talk about this button in a little bit as well. So I'm going to click Get Started. And notice now in this student experience, it has exactly what you want students to see based on what you've created in order, right? So this is the beginning. This is the overview of the unit. And for the student, you're going to have the students using these arrows on the top right to navigate through the course, right? So I said it's linear, right? So they can go back and forth. So I'm going to use this right arrow to go next, right? So let's say I'm a student, I'm done reading this page, I'm going to click right arrow for next. And then this is the next thing I'm going to look at and read. When I'm done, I use that right arrow to click next. And then I can see the next item, right? Let's say I want to go back, I forgot something from the previous slide, right? So I can use that back arrow over here. I do want to mention that when you have students using content, you want to encourage them to use these arrows in the course. So on this upper right corner, we want to discourage students from using the browser buttons because that sometimes can bring students back to a page that they don't necessarily want to be in, right? So it might get them a little bit lost in the course. We are all going to do it at some point as teachers and as students. No worries, you can always go back to the course, but just for simplicity's sake, you want students to use these arrows at the top right corner. Okay, so let's say me as the student, I'm done reading this section and I want to go back to content. Again, don't use the browser arrows. I'm going to click here back to content. So go back to that start page. Okay, and notice now that the iLearn course has recognized that me as the student has viewed Unit 1, right? So it says I've completed 1 out of 1 sections in this part, right? There's a check mark here, shows me what I've done. So this is a really nice feature in the iLearn course, is that students feel accomplished when they see, oh, there's a check mark, I've completed it, I'm ready for the next thing. And you can see here, Unit 2, not yet completed, right? It says 0 out of 4. One other thing I want you to notice in this student experience is that this top part has changed. So now that I've seen Unit 1, it knows that I got up to this section called Writing a Haiku Poem. And so the iLearn course will track where the student has been, what they viewed, what they've completed, and where they need to go next. So when a student logs back into the course and they access content, they can just click continue because the course is going to bring them back to the place where they left off, right? They don't need to go back to the beginning, and you don't need to confuse students by saying, click Unit 4, Lesson 2, right? It'll show them exactly where they were, and if they were behind, let's say they're not up to Unit 4, Lesson 2, right? They know, oh, I need to look at these next few items before I catch up to where my teacher is. Okay, so it brings them back to that place where they left off, right? So they can just click continue from there. So that's a really nice feature of using content in iLearn. I'm gonna just X out of the student view, so I'll go back to my profile and go back to view as teacher. Okay, so I've showed you teacher view and student view. Now I'm going to show you how to create a new unit in this content tool. So I'm going to start from the very beginning, and at this point you can turn your attention to the right side of my screen. I will demonstrate the steps first, and then I'll give us some tinker time to work in your own sandbox. So again, from the beginning, I'm going to go to the top navigation bar, and find the icon that says content. Remember, now I'm back in my teacher view. And when I click content, you'll notice it brings me to that content tool. Okay, your sandbox will be empty, but I'm going to show how to build in here. Okay, now that I'm in my content tool, there's a button here called Add New Unit. I'm going to click Add New Unit, and it's going to open this HTML editor that should look familiar from yesterday's work in announcements. Okay, so first thing I want to do is name the unit, and I'm going to stick with this back to school theme that we started yesterday, and I'm going to call it Unit 0, right? So I already know in my particular sandbox I have a Unit 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I want to build something for the very beginning of school. I'm going to call it Unit 0, Welcome. In the HTML box, I can add anything I want. Okay, so here's where you want to think, well, what do I want students to see? We know now that I'm creating a unit landing page, right? I said that this level is required, right? Because I need to start a new unit for students. And I want to think, well, what do I want students to see and view, right? So I want to start with, let's say, an essential question, right? It's a preview in this unit landing page on what's going to happen next. So I'm going to use an essential question. What classroom rules should we follow, right? So this theme of setting up classroom protocols and ground rules or community agreements, right? This is something that all of us as teachers will review with students when they first come back to school. So I like this as a first kind of welcome essential question. And as you saw yesterday in this HTML editor, there are many things you can do here. So I could, for example, bold this. I can change the color. I know I'm working with elementary school students now, so maybe this is too small for my liking. Maybe I don't want 11. Maybe I want to change it to, let's say, 18. Okay, so those are just some examples of things you can do to change that text. And potentially your unit landing page could be just this, right? It could be just some text to introduce the unit. I'm going to show you how to insert an image. But you know, when you build yours, you can think about what you want students to preview. It could be a schedule of the week. It could be a table of contents. It could be an agenda, right? So that's really up to you. But knowing that this is the unit landing page, the first thing that students see, I want to make sure it's not too busy. So potentially you could add videos, etc. into content, but for the unit landing page, I want it to be very clean and simple. So I'm going to insert an image, and I'll refer to these 3 tools in this HTML editor. We went through these yesterday. This one is called Add Image. The second one next to it is called Insert Stuff. And then the third one is called Insert Web Link. So I'm going to just show us how to insert an image because I feel like that's an appropriate use of this unit landing page. I'll use this one for now. Add image. It looks like a camera. And when I add an image file, I can add it from any place, right? So I could use a URL. I can use an image that I have saved on my computer. So I'm going to show, I actually have an image saved on my computer, so I'll show us that. I'm going to click My Computer. And then there's a section here for you to upload your file. So I'll click Upload. And then I'm going to just find my file. So on my desktop, I have saved an image that I found on Classroom Rules that I think is great for elementary school students. So I'll select that image, click Open, and notice it's uploaded that JPEG. There's a message here. It says I can choose destination where this file is stored. You can change that if you want, but I'm just going to leave it as the default right now. I'm going to click Add. And then it allows you here to provide alternative text. So knowing that this is an image, perhaps I have students that may have trouble seeing that image. So maybe I want to add some text so they know what that is. Okay, so I'll write Classroom Rules because that's what this image is. If you have an image that's maybe just decorative, like a border or something like that, you can click this image is just decorative. So that's really up to you. I'll click OK. And you can see here, I've inserted that image, okay? And in this HTML editor, I can play around with that image. So let's say, oh, it looks really big for some reason. I want to make it smaller, so I can adjust the size there. And then just really quickly, you can also insert an image. So I showed you insert file from your computer. You can potentially, if you don't want to save files, use a link from the web, right? So that would be insert stuff, and then you do insert link. We showed you this yesterday. And then you add the URL here, right? This would be the same if you want to add an image or a video, for example. So yesterday I showed you some examples of how to add, let's say, a YouTube video link right here. Okay, and it's going to embed the same way. But again, for a unit landing page, a video doesn't quite make sense. Let me just cancel that for now. Okay, so a couple ways for you to add an image. Then before I finish, notice at the bottom there's some options. So before I save it, you'll notice here it says hidden. The default for the teacher view is that all content is hidden until you are ready to show it to students. So while I'm creating this, if I'm happy with it, I can click here to make it visible. And then once I click save, it's going to show right into that student view, okay? If you're comfortable doing that, great, but let's say I'm not quite sure. I wanna see what it looks like before students see it. So I'm gonna leave it as hidden and click save. Okay, so now it brings you back to that main content page, and you'll notice here on the left side, it's created a new unit, right? Look what I just did. And it'll pop at the bottom, right, because I've already had stuff at the top. But I knew beforehand that I was creating something for the beginning of the course, and I don't want Unit 0 to come at the end after Unit 4. So here's a good place for me to show you how to reorder things. So what you can do, right, very similar to how you would reorder things like files on your computer, I'm going to click this unit and drag it all the way to the top of that list. And there you go, you can see now I have my units in order 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Right? If I had left it at the bottom, that's just what the students would see if you published it that way. So you as the teacher, you can kind of move this around however you like. You can also move around lessons and folders, which Jen will show you until you're ready to show students. So let's say, okay, it's still hidden. I know now that it's in the right order, and I'm happy with this this unit level, right? If I want to edit something, I can use this top button here, the 3 dots. I can edit, I can delete it if I don't like it, make a new one, right? That's really up to you. But let's say I'm happy with this now, okay? I can click just from this page, make visible, and there you can see now it's ready for students to see. Okay. So now it's your turn. I'm going to give us 5 minutes in Tinker Time to create a new unit in the content tool. Remember, you are just creating this landing page for students, right? So it doesn't need to be anything fancy. I recommend even, you can use the same example as I did or something similar that you would use for students for the first couple days of class as a welcome, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to go to contents, right, from that nav bar, and then click add new unit. You'll add some text, and I recommend trying to add either an image from your computer or somewhere on the web. Okay, so I will leave us 5 minutes of quiet tinker time. If during this time you have questions, you can type it into the Q&A box in Zoom. One of our panelists will respond to your question. And as a reminder, if we dismiss your question, it's not because we're trying to ignore you or we don't want to answer you. It just means that we want to focus our discussion on this particular topic at hand. So go ahead and get started. Good luck. 5 minutes to create a unit landing page in content. Go ahead. Okay, we have a little less than a minute left in Tinker time. Please feel free to use the Q&A box if you need help with this unit piece in content. All right. Hopefully by now you have created a unit landing page. Jen's gonna now show you how to add lessons into it.
All right, thanks, Jeannie. Okay. All right, so now that we've created our unit landing page, we now need to create some lessons. And if you're like me, most of your lessons live in Google Drive, and that's where you have your PowerPoints, Google Docs, you have your Google Forms and some sheets. So you might want to just import all of those into iLearn, and then you would have most of your lessons completed. All right, so I'm going to show you a little bit how to import those things. But before I do that, I think it's really important to really go back and take a look on how you want your lessons to flow. All right, what is the path that you want to create for your students? So in talking about lessons, I think it's really important to see an example of what a lesson could look like, so you can see what the possibilities are. So all I need you to do right now is just sit back, relax, and just let me take you through a sample lesson. And then we can get to work on how we create that lesson. So the most important part of the lesson creation is, how does it look from the student's standpoint? All right, so what is the student seeing, and what is the easiest way to create lessons so that they can access it and they can get to the next part of your lesson as seamlessly as possible? So here, we're gonna view as a student. So you're able to do that, and that's a great tool to use all the time, because you just always wanna double check and see how it looks like from their point of view. So the first thing you're gonna do here is, under your name, you're gonna click on View as a Student. And that's how you can look at a student view. So here is the announcement. So I just want to go back and talk about announcements, which we learned yesterday. So I made a new announcement for today, August 11th. Let's get moving. That's my headline. And I added a YouTube video. I want them to watch the freeze dance a little bit before they start the lesson.
Let's play the party freeze game.
And then right after that, I created a link, a quick link down here. And it's going to take them straight into the lesson. So we couldn't do that yesterday because we had no content. So now that we've built some content today, we're able to create that link, and you can take students straight into the lessons. This would work best with lower grades, because otherwise, if you don't create a link like this, students then have to go to content. Then they have to look for the unit, and then they have to click launch the unit, right? So for younger students and elementary, that might just be too many clicks. So the easiest way to kind of minimize all of that for them is to create a link, all right? Just like I had explained yesterday, you go to quick links and you select the content and you select which one you want them. During Tinker Time, if anyone wants me to show that again, I'm more than happy to do it there. Okay. So let me go back into my announcement one more time, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I'm here, August 11th, let's get moving, and I'm gonna click. And it's gonna take me straight into the lesson. So this is the lesson landing page. It's pretty much your home page for the lesson. On top, you're gonna write your focus question. Maybe you want to number it or give a date that way, you know, for organizational purposes later on when you have many lessons, you know where everything is, all right? And below, I like in my lesson landing page to just include my schedule, all right? So we have circle time, a read aloud, a journal time, and a quick lesson on emotions. So my PowerPoint's gonna go here. So here is my circle time. So again, as I showed you yesterday, you can do a video note here. You can upload a video. I just didn't want to record another video, so I borrowed this one from YouTube. All right, so after circle time, whatever you've created for them, you're now going into maybe a read aloud, all right, which is your next item. So for this one, I picked The Kissing Hand. My son really likes this book.
I want to play with my friends and play with my toys and read my books and swing on my swing. Please, may I stay home with you?
All right, so now that you had to read aloud, maybe you want to ask them some questions on Zoom. So what you can do is you can hide these questions. So you might want to view it for yourself. So that's why I'm leaving it here, but I can hide this later on and students won't be able to see this anymore. All right, so this view is only for me as a teacher on my end to see, and I'm going to hide this from students. So maybe I want to ask this question of my students. Who comforts you when you're feeling afraid or lonely? How? In the HTML, I'm building it out. I'm talking about the word lonely. I have an image and then the word comfort, and then I have comfort, some images here. And then I'm going to create an assignment. Now, you're going to learn about assignments tomorrow, but here's just a quick example of what an assignment is. All right, you have your instructions. Can you draw the person that brings you the most comfort when you're lonely? And students are able to submit their assignments, and that's their way of getting some feedback from the teacher, and also you're able to see what they're doing on their end. And now here comes the kind of like quick lesson and then a little PowerPoint, all right? So think about how we just set up that lesson. We got the circle time, then we took them straight into the read aloud and a little journal time. So that's, you know, a nice flow to the lesson itself, and that's how you would build it into the lesson and the content. Now, when it comes to PowerPoints, there are 3 ways it can look for students, all right? I'm going to show you all 3. And you're going to decide for yourself which one you like the best. And when I show you later on how to create these from your Google Drive, you're just going to remember the way that you like the best and whatever suits your class. So this is one view of how PowerPoints can look. All right, so students have the ability to see on the left-hand side all the slides, and they have the ability to have the home screen. They can change things, and they can also present. All right, so this is just one view of what it could look like. If this isn't for you, then another option is you can create a quick link. All right, and in a quick link, all you do is you click on this link and it'll take you into a new window with the actual PowerPoint. Some advantages to this would be that you're able to view in a split screen, maybe something you're doing in class and the document at the same time. Disadvantage of this is once the student leaves iLearn because they're clicking on this external site, iLearn doesn't record the time that they've spent on the link. And if that's important to you, then quick links might not be how you want to present your PowerPoints. So for example, I teach AP psychology. My slides are 30, 40 slides in a PowerPoint. And I need students to look through them and read through them. And if they come to me at the end and tell me, Miss, I really don't understand, and I look back and see they only spent 50 seconds in a 40 slide PowerPoint, then I know there's a problem, all right? So that's when I have a conversation with the students. But other than that, if you want the quick links, the advantage is that they can do a split screen and they're able to work outside of the iLearn if you need them to do that. All right, the last one is an embed code. So you can pull an embed code, and when you embed it, here's how the PowerPoint can look. You can set it up so it can start automatically, and then it can start moving the slides by itself. It can auto advance depending on the timer that you set to it. This is really useful, I think, for younger grades, for students who maybe you don't want them clicking around too much. As soon as they toggle into the screen, they're able to immediately start the PowerPoint and the PowerPoint starts playing for them. So again, those are three options. You got one, to embed, and it looks like this. Two, you create a link. Or three, you can provide them with the feel of Google Slides and have a presentation mode and they can present, all right? So those are your three choices of how you want to present. Okay. Here's another lesson, and in this lesson, I've inserted my Google Forms. All right, so maybe I want to know how students are doing. So I want to collect that information. And when schools closed back in March, I did this as my do now every day because it was really important to me to see how my students were doing. So they had to respond every day and let me know if they were doing great, if they were struggling, if they needed me to check in, or if they needed some space that day. And it really helped me to gauge how much I wanted to push that student that day in class. Okay. Another type of Google form that you might want to send out is surveys, getting to know them. This is what I send out on my first day of class. And I want their email address, their parents' name, their parents' information, and just a few questions to get to know them a little bit. All right. So now that we have shown you a little bit about how lessons can work and the pathway you can take and the flow of it, let's go back and see how we made that. Go back to your name. I'm going to click out View as a Student. And now I'm back in the teacher mode. Let's see how we actually made that lesson. Okay. So here are our units again. The units break down into lessons, and the lessons break down into folders. And within it, I had my circle time, my read aloud, my vocab words, my story time, and my PowerPoint. Okay. You have a few options here. You can either complete your lessons by days, meaning August 11th, and you would take your student through the whole day in one lesson. That's one option of a way you can organize and arrange it. Another way might be you could do it by topics. So maybe it's a poetry, it's a reading, it's a math unit, and they're completing the next lesson in it. So you really want to think about your choices before you begin creating these units, all right? I personally think for lower grades, if you embed everything into one single lesson, then they don't need to come out and click reading and math and poetry. Everything is there for them and they're just toggling to the right, and that the whole day is done for them there, all right? So those are just options and ideas. All right, so with that said, let's go back to Jeannie's unit and let's add some content to it. Let's add a lesson, okay? So before I add a lesson, let's go take a look what I have in my Google Drive. I want to add two things, all right? Number one, I want to add this PowerPoint with my rules, expectation, and routines. And number 2, I want to add this Google Doc. Okay. So they're all here in my personal Google Drive. So the first step is, so now we're coming out of the sample and we're going into how do we actually do all of this. So the first step is you're going to want to click on the unit. Okay. Once you're clicked on the unit, then you're going to click Create New. This creates a new lesson, all right? So I'm going to name my lesson. I'm going to name it, What Classroom Rules Should We Follow? And for the purpose of organization, I'm going to name this Day 1. So I know that that's the first lesson. In case I need to rearrange and reorganize things, I want to make sure everything is clearly labeled. Okay. Down here, I'll probably post my schedule. All right, so I'll have a little schedule there for the students. Very important, make sure you make it visible and you press save, and now the lesson is completed. Now we want to add something into the lesson. So remember, it's the unit, the lesson, and then all the materials you want within the lesson. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add existing, okay? Once you're in Add Existing, you have all these choices here, and I want to click on Google Drive. So when it takes you into Google Drive the first time, it's going to prompt you to sign into your Google Drive. Once you've signed in, it will always link you to the Google Drive. So you're not like copy and pasting from Google Drive. iLearn is able to pull the information straight from the drive. All right, so I'm going to go into my folder where I had everything, and I'm going to look for that PowerPoint I wanted to include. Okay, so this is really important. Take a look at this one. I have a sample Google form here, and the message I'm getting is this file is private. All right, it's very important that you change your share settings so that it's public. Otherwise, students cannot see the Google Drive material. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go back in here for the sample, go to share, and just make sure that the link is open to everyone. Okay, and now the link is public. I'll be honest, there were a few times in my class where students were telling me, Miss, I can't see the lesson. I'll be like, oh, whoops, forgot to change that share setting. So you quickly just go in while you're in the lesson and change the share setting, and then students are able to see it. Okay, so in this case, I'm pulling the PowerPoint. And it's easy as that. The PowerPoint is in. Okay, so you have this viewpoint. So when you do add existing, it's going to look like this. The slide on the left, and then you have your viewpoints here and the present, all right? Now, if you like the look of that quick link, that's going to be a little different. So in that case, you go back up right here on the lesson, click on the lesson, and then you're going to create new. This time we're going to HTML document. And I'm going to call this PowerPoint link. In this case, you're going to click on the quick link button. And then you are going to go to Google Drive. And you're going to select that PowerPoint again. And it's going to create a link. All right, so that's your second way of taking them to a PowerPoint link. All right, the third way is that embed code. And that one is a little bit more difficult, but I promise you it's worth the battle if you want students to have that feel where they automatically start the PowerPoint and they're able to go through Advance very quickly on its own. All right, so how do I get that embed code? I'm gonna have to go back to my PowerPoint. Okay. In my PowerPoint, I'm going to go to File, and right down here, Publish to the Web. That's where the embed code is going to be. I'm going to go to Embed, and I'm going to set a few settings. I want it a little bit small. I want it to advance every, I don't know. For now, I'm going to say every second. Okay, that's not true in real life. You would never want that. And more importantly, I want the slideshow to start as soon as it loads. And then there's my code. You're going to copy that code. And that's really what you need to embed it, right? Once you have the code, you go back into your document, and we're just going to link up that embed code. Go to day one again, create new, HTML document, label it, and this time I'm going to click on the middle button, insert stuff, and you're going to insert an embed code. And there you have it. It's embedded. You like that 1 second transition? I'm so glad it's there. All right, and I'm gonna save. Always make sure it's visible if you want it to be visible, all right? And there you go. There's 3 ways that I can have my PowerPoint. Number 1, I went to add existing and just pull the document there. Number 2, creating the link, I went to create new HTML editor and made the link. And number 3, I had to go to PowerPoint, get an embed code, come back here, create new, and enter the embed code. So just want to show that one more time. So you would go to create new, HTML, and here, enter embed code. Now this is a really useful tool because you can embed anything, all right? So you can grab a code from Padlet and embed it here. You can grab a code from your Google form and embed it here. There is an endless amount of applications. So anytime you have some sort of code, you can embed it and it will display it very neatly for you inside iLearn. Okay. So now the all-important test. How does it look from the student view? Let's go take a look. Go to content. And let's launch that unit. So we have our landing page of the unit, lesson, PowerPoint option 1, PowerPoint option 2, and PowerPoint option 3. Notice as soon as I started, it loaded and now it's taking students through it. Okay. All right, so I want to show you one more thing. What if I have a Google Docs? Let me get out of my student view so I can go back to teacher. I'm going to go back to content. And I'm going to day 1, add existing, Google Drive, go into my folder, and I'm going to pick that doc that I want students to complete. And you're done. So for some of you who have everything in Google Drive, it might just be everything here is from Google Drive and you're not completing anything from scratch. So that is a possibility, all right? We'll definitely talk more about assignments and discussions tomorrow and how that can look. But for now, this is how you can bring in all the materials you already have created in Google Drive or even OneDrive and be able to display it here. So a few things I wanted to point out, all right, is number 1, when you're creating these lessons, all right, so say I'm teaching Unit 3, and obviously I'm not going to wait for the last minute to be creating Unit 4. I'm creating Unit 4 and I don't want kids to see it. I want to make sure that Unit 4 is going to be not visible, all right? I want it hidden. Once you have the hidden button on a unit, the entire unit below it is hidden. So I don't need to go and hide every single one of these buttons. That would take forever, all right? So I'm just gonna hide this button. And the whole unit's hidden. I don't know about you, but for me, that only happens in like September and October and some of November. And then by December, I'm probably only hiding one lesson at a time. And then by March, it's pretty much downhill there. So here I am hiding one lesson at a time. So I'm like one lesson ahead of the students. Okay, I'll open them up. I can even hide slides from students. So I don't know how it works in elementary school, but sometimes I have answer keys to my assignments and I would have it hidden. And then when it was time and students were ready to review the answers, I would then make it visible and students could see the answer key finally and check their work or something like that. So that's how I could use it also in a class for lessons itself. And what we talked about is organization is key, all right? So what I found as an issue in the beginning is I would tell students, okay, we're on the slide with kissing hands. And they'd be like, where are you? I don't know where anything is. So I said, maybe I just need to number them, all right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So instead of saying find kissing hand, I would just say, just go 2. And that was easy enough for them and everyone's on page 2 and we're ready to go. And so that's why I think once you're clearly thinking about how you want to organize everything, the clearer you are, the easier it is to navigate for your students, okay? And as always, you're able to reorder things, okay? So maybe in Unit 0, I don't want this, the school rule document to be last anymore. I changed my mind, all right? I want it to be first. Well, you just drag it up. Or maybe we couldn't even finish the PowerPoint on day 1, okay? And I need to keep that document for day 2. So now I'm gonna create a new lesson, day 2, rules. Now I have this new one, this new lesson. So I am now going to drag my unfinished lesson stuff into day 2. Okay, it's really important that, I'm so glad that kind of happened. Hold on. You want to keep it underneath. Do you see how it's underneath and not outside? If it's underneath, it lives inside the lesson. If it's outside, then you've just created a random folder. So you want to keep everything tucked underneath that lesson when you're dragging things around. All right, that pretty much wraps it up for me in discussing how to maneuver the lessons and also incorporate some of your Google Drive. We are going into 5 minutes of tinker time for you to play around with the content and start embedding it. I think if you could just upload one document, even if you're not going to use it, just going through the motions is really helpful. I'll tell you, when you create 100, by day 100 of class, and you've created 100 lessons and you've done this a million times, you can almost do this in your sleep. Like, you're not even thinking about what buttons you're pressing. So when they asked us to present, I had to write down, it's like, wait, what are the steps actually for each of these things? Because it almost becomes automatic towards the end. You've done it so many times. So I would say you really have to practice with the content. It's the core of iLearn. And the more you practice and the more you play around and take a look how it looks in student view, the better it's going to be for you and your students. All right, I hope that was helpful. So I'm going to put us into 5 minutes of Tinker Time. Go ahead and upload one Google document. And I'm here in the Q&A to answer any questions. And if you need me to show something again, we're happy to do that. So I see a question from Polino about how to add a lesson. All right, so when you are in the unit, click on the unit. Oh, you did? Okay, great. And then you just create new lesson. Okay. You're welcome. All right, Jeffrey, happy to answer that question for you. How do you get to content? So once you're inside your sandbox, all right, you're gonna have the nav bar on top, navigation bar. So you're going to have the content widget here. And that's where you're going to click on to get into content. In some cases, I don't know, for you, maybe there's too many items in your nav bar and you need to click the drop down and take a look at it. And it's there, but usually the content is one of the top widgets right here on the home page. Okay, Jeffrey, just let us know if you found it. If not, I can try to see if I can help you out some more. So Teresa, I can answer that question for you. To go to a quick link, you go to content. And then you're going to, let's say I'm in my lesson, create new. And it's not this. Some people always click on web link. It's not web link. You're gonna go into the HTML document. Okay, this little like lightning sign, that's where the quick links are. And from here, you can add your quick links. Sorry about that. So you might want to go to the drive and grab a link from something you've created there. Or like if I did content, I can link it up to another page. So that's how I did it in the announcements. So that's how I linked it up to my lesson here, okay? And I could say I want a whole new window, or same frame, any of the choices here. Teresa, I hope that answered your question. Oh, Phyllis, I'm sorry. Phyllis, your name is coming up as Jeffrey Stifle. I'm not really sure about that. Okay. Hopefully you can help her out. Okay, Teresa, no problem. I can definitely show that to you really quick. Jeannie, what time is it? Just so I know.
It's 2:44.
2:44, and we're done at 2:45?
Correct. So if there are any remaining questions, Jen's going to show you how to reach us through office hours, which is right after the session.
Okay.
So
Teresa,
maybe, oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Teresa, if you want to just stay on, I'm happy to show you what it looks like. I'm just going to have everyone else see the office hours first, and then I can answer your question in 1 second. Okay. So just to close up for today, tomorrow's session, you're going to be creating assignments. So maybe you want to bring any of those files to complete. And again, you're using the same Zoom link. And definitely, I encourage you to play around with the content tool. The more you use it, the better you'll be at it. So obviously there's a little bit of a learning curve in the beginning, but once you kind of settle in, it becomes second nature almost. So our office hours start at 3 o'clock in about 15 minutes till 4, but I'm happy to stay on right now with anyone who still needs a little bit of help, okay? So if you're all done, we will see you tomorrow. Well, actually the 2 other presenters will see you tomorrow, and have a great day. All right, Teresa, let me show you how to do that. So it's a great question. So you're gonna go back to, and this will be recorded, so if I go too fast, the recording, you can always pick it up later, but at least I explained it to you, right? So I'm gonna go to a new announcement, sorry. Okay, and then I'm gonna say, let's call it sample lesson link. And what I'm going to do now is insert a quick link, okay? But this time I'm inserting it to content. The reason I couldn't do this yesterday is I had no content to link it to, but now I have content today, so I'm able to link it. And when I click on the content link, it's going to take me to all the content that I have. So let's say, for example, I want to go to that welcome lesson we made, okay? And right here, I want it to go straight into the day 1. I want it to open in the same frame. I don't want a new window, okay? I'm going to insert it, the little link, and I'm going to publish it. So now let's go back to our sample announcement. Here's my link. And as soon as I click on it, it's going to take me straight into the lesson, all right, from the student point of view. Is that helpful, Teresa? Katarina, yes, you can share your iLearn classes with other teachers. I teach AP Psych and there is another AP Psych remote teacher and we often work together. She would create the Monday lesson, I create the Tuesday lesson, and we can import, export our lessons to each other. So that way you can work on teams. Phyllis, if you like, you can come join us. We're gonna end this now. We are meeting up at 3 o'clock and it seemed like you had a little trouble yesterday and we can definitely help you out and set you up with your sandbox if you just wanna come back and click the office hour link for 3 o'clock, okay? So we'll see you there. Yes, you'll receive a recording from us towards the end of the week with the lesson deck. All right, if there are no more questions, we are ready to finish up for today. Thank you so much for your time and everyone have a great day.